Life on the island of Sodor had been very stressful since the engines from the mainland had entered the Vickerstown rolling bridge. And the other engines were very worried despite their crisis, and to think that the engines from the mainland would take over and replace them. And that was why later that evening the Fat Controller gathered all of his engines to the big station. "Settle down, all of you," he said. "I know that there's been a crisis before those mainland engines came to visit my railway," he said. "But don't you worry, things will be back to normal soon enough." "I knew it," said Ryan. "First the Fat Controller decided to keep me in with, and now he's going to send one of you lot away." "I don't want to be scrapped," moaned James. "I've worked there for a long time." "Silence!" shouted the Fat Controller. "And like I said, none of you will be replaced. And I would never want to scrap you all," he said. "Those mainland engines have come here for a reason, and I've accepted that," he said. "If you lot will excuse me, I have to go home for supper." And he walked off. Skarloey had overheard this and was thinking, I know what might be going on the other side," he said, "and it's about time I do something about it," he said to himself. Well, he said, "I better go to the big station," he said. "Come on, Melanie," he said, and he and Melanie backed away. As soon as Skarloey arrived with Melanie at the big station, he finally saw Ryan and Whiff there. They were looking glum, but were very pleased that they were staying. "I'm happy to stay here," said Ryan. "But what if those mainland engines would replace us and take away our jobs?" moaned Whiff. "There's no way this could happen." "Oh," he said at last. "Sorry, Skarloey, we didn't notice you here." "Oh, that's all right," said Skarloey. "I'm just worried that the mainland engines will replace us, that's all," said Skarloey. "Maybe it will be true," said Ryan. "The Fat Controller did really decide to keep me and Whiff on the railway, but there's no way he could replace some engine like you," he said. "You're very important." "Oh, I know that," said Skarloey, and while they were still chatting, they heard a familiar whistle approaching. There, racing past by, was Gator with a goods train. He seemed in at a tremendous speed. "Well, maybe all right," said Skarloey. "Maybe we will get replaced." "Don't listen to him," said Skarloey. I think we might have a chance," said Skarloey, "to stay here. Anyways, goodbye, Ryan and Whiff," said Skarloey. "Come on, Melanie, we're going home," said Skarloey, and he puffed away. Until later that night at the sheds, Skarloey still couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his last travel over the Vickerstown rolling bridge. Well, thought Skarloey, "I have seen worse, but this was not all." "What are you talking about?" asked Melanie. "What I'm thinking, Melanie," said Skarloey, "is that there's a slight chance I could see what's happening on the other railway, but behind the Vickerstown rolling bridge," he said. "You're crazy. You're going to get scrapped again," said Melanie. "Are you serious?" Skarloey thought and thought. He had known his two coaches, Wilhelmina and Melanie, for a long time, but Skarloey had something he had always wanted to do. "You know what?" he said. "I could do something. Become a saviour," he said. Of all engines that could be scrapped someday," said Melanie. "Are you sure about this?" "I think so," said Skarloey. "Besides," said Skarloey warmfully, "maybe those mainland engines are going to replace us. and force us to be scrapped, said Skarloey. But anyways, he said, and then he took a deep breath and decided, what I'm thinking, if Hank's in that other railway somewhere, I'll save him, just like he saved me and Wilhelmina, he said. Besides, he saved me, I'm going to do the same, he said. Melanie smiled. I had no idea Hank became such a good friend to you, she said. I never thought you were saved by someone else, your own kind. Wow, said Skarloey. It is what I would do. What do you say? How about we go on an adventure sooner or later tomorrow night? Then it's settled then, said Wilhelmina said Melanie shyly. Good, said Skarloey, and the two both remained happily to sleep. The next morning, Thomas was at the station taking on passengers with Vanny and Clarabelle. When Skarloey arrived with a goods train, he had to take to the new branch line at Alsborough. Hey Thomas, said Skarloey, you all right? Think so. I am all right, said Thomas. How are you? But Skarloey looked worried. Thomas was going to ask until the guard's whistle interrupted. Goodbye, Skarloey, said Thomas. Hope you feel better. But Skarloey didn't say anything, and he still remained quiet and worried, especially. Just then, the Fat Controller came out of the station. He was about to ask Skarloey his problem when Edward arrived with some bad news. There's trouble at the diesel shed, sir, said Edward. The diesels are refusing to work and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway. Oh, indeed, said the Fat Controller. We will not allow that, he said. But, sir, said Skarloey, after I've finished on my branch line, can I see what's going on over at Vicarstown? No, Skarloey, you can't, said the Fat Controller. There's trouble at the diesel sheds, and you've still got a lot of work to do, he said. Besides, you're needed for the new branch line for a start, he said, and the Fat Controller climbed aboard Edward and immediately set off to the diesel sheds. And as for Skarloey, he still had work to do. He pushed out of the station feeling worried. Later, when he arrived at Alsborough, Skarloey had just made his final delivery for the quarry when he could hear Samson and Gator talking on top. This railway is fun, said Samson. I may have been rude to those engines at first, but now I really like this railway. Yeah, said Gator. Beautiful seas, beautiful blue sky. I really hope the Fat Controller will let us stay here as long as we want, said Gator. But then Skarloey frowned. I guess so, he whispered. Just then, he came out of the tunnel, left his goods train there and puffed away. The night time had already came. The moon was full and the sea was calm. Skarloey had already picked up Melanie and was filled up with more coal and water. Are you ready? Said Skarloey. Yes, said Melanie, shaking her wheels. I hope so. Good, said Skarloey. He took a deep breath and steamed through the Vicarstown rolling bridge. Here I come, he shouted, and raced down to the other railway. Wow, said Skarloey, what a place. But then he started remembering how he was losing Melanie for the first time and couldn't have her back. Wow, he said, shaking his boiler, but he knew he had to make up for his plan. Soon Skarloey crept in and heard the sounds of diesel horns. "They're coming," said Skarloey, and then he raced through his siding to hide, and screeched to a stop. There, in front of him, was some engines that were scrapped, and in front of Skarloey was some tankers and a broken down Hank. "Skarloey," said Hank, "what are you doing here?" "Melanie and I came to rescue you," said Skarloey. "And who are these friends of yours?" he asked. "This is Timothy, and this is King Arthur, and Layla. You remember those three, don't you?" "Skarloey," said Layla. "How are you doing?" "Melanie, Layla," said Skarloey, "what are you doing here? Did you run away for the second time?" "I'm afraid I did," said Layla. My sisters were getting scrapped in my old line, so I ran away for the second time. Then I broke down, and some diesels found me and put me there in this siding," said Layla. "You better tell the Fat Controller what's been happening, and he'll help us." "Yeah," said Timothy, "then he'll decide to keep us." Skarloey thought and thought, but as he began to back away, he saw a familiar face. "Flynn," he said, "it is you. Don't you worry. I'll get you all out of here," he said. "And besides, I promise that my controller will do everything to save you all." "And what's King Arthur doing here?" I was sent away for being nasty and rude," said King Arthur. "I'm sorry about what happened a few months ago, and you are splendid." "Thank you," said Skarloey. "Anyways," he said, "I'm all sorry to see what's happened to you all, but I've got to save you all." "Skarloey," said Hank, "listen, we don't have much time. I've been kidnapped by some 2 diesels, and they took away my coal and stripped away the paintwork off my tender," he said. "And I have also found the oil for the diesels," he said. "It's the only way you can bring me back to this railway if you promise to be as quick as you can. We're relying on you to help us." Then Skarloey remembered how Hank saved him. "Then I will save you again," said Skarloey. Besides, what?" said Layla. "Hank saved you from scrap?" "Yes," said Skarloey. "He did, and now it's time I go." Then he heard some footsteps approaching. "You don't have as much time, Skarloey," said Timothy. "You have to get Hank out of here." "Well, I'm not leaving you all behind," shouted Skarloey. "It's an outrage seeing you all get cut up." "You have to," said Hank. "It would be wise for you to rescue me," he said. I'm sure you'll return the favor I did for you," he said. Then Skarloey made up his mind. "Then I will," he said. He buffered up to the tankers and was coupled up, and at last he pulled his saviour out of the scrap siding. "Good luck, Hank," said Timothy. "And I hope we meet again." "We will," said Hank, and at last Skarloey had managed to do what he did. "Thank you," said Hank. If you had finally been able to do it again." Then the footsteps, the sound of them apparently were getting closer and closer. There, out of the shadows, was a signalman blocking the way. "Stop right there," said the man. Ah, look what we've got here, said Melanie. John Harsh Mascatush, she said. Is it? Whiff told us all about you. Ah, he said. So he did he? He said, my engine told you all about him. What are you and that fellow engine doing with those tankers, stealing goods that don't belong to you? I'll have you know, said Melanie, that we're escaping. I mean, taking these to the breaker's yard. Oh, through that bridge over there. Then John Mascatush figured it out. You're all lying. You are escaping, aren't you? Get out of our way, said Skarloey, or we will run you over. Then, with all his might, he reversed quickly, and John Mascatush jumped before he could get run over. Curse that red puffball, he shouted as he watched the goods and Hank escape with Skarloey. But back at the station, Edward and James were already there on their next passenger run when they heard a familiar whistle and they saw a familiar big engine with a scrapped tender. Edward and James were surprised. No way, said James. Skarloey, Hank, what happened to you all? Skarloey saved me, just like I saved him, said Hank. It's glad for me to be back. Hooray, shouted Edward. Well done, Skarloey. As all the other engines heard, they began to feel enthusiastic and started asking questions. The Fat Controller came out of the station and shouted, "Why aren't you all working?" he said. "No way," he went on. "Hank, I can't believe you're finally here." "Skarloey saved me, just like I saved him," said Hank. "Now I deserve a fresh coat of paint." "Why, yes, you do," said Skarloey. Well done, Skarloey, for your bravery. I cannot thank you enough," he said. "Hank, you will deserve a new coat of paint from the works." "Thank you, sir," said Hank, and was starting to smile as all the engines whistled and cheered for Skarloey and Hank. When Hank returned from the works a few days later, he even told Connor and Caitlin all about what Skarloey did for him. Just then, Skarloey puffed in. He wasn't so happy to see Connor and Caitlin since they are from the mainland, but he was impressed to see Hank again. "Here he is," said Hank, "my saviour, who I saved a long time ago," said Hank. "Oh," said Caitlin, "there you are. Hank was just telling us what you did for him out there, and you are the best saviour in the world." "Maybe," said Skarloey, "or maybe I'm the saviour of this railway," he said, "besides from you lot." Well, said Connor, "you are the greatest saviour on this railway. It's no wonder the Fat Controller selected you for a long time." Maybe, mumbled Skarloey, but just then he still had a thought. "I'm going on an adventure again," he said to Hank. "What?" said Hank. "You're not thinking about going back to the other railway, aren't you?" said Hank. "You're going to let them scrap you this time?" No, said Skarloey, "not like that." But then he began to puff away. "What's wrong with him?" asked Caitlin. "Oh, he's just a bit shy after saving me a few days back," said Hank. You'll get used to it, he said kindly. That evening at the shed, Skarloey started worrying, and Neville soon began to wonder why. "Skarloey," he asked, "you look worried. Is something wrong?" "Yes, apparently," said Skarloey. I'm going on a midnight trip. A midnight trip? Said Neville. To where? You've already saved Hank. I know, said Skarloey, but somewhere not the same as the other railway, she said. Neville believed Skarloey, but he was only lying. Where to? Not the other railway. That's what I've already told you, said Skarloey. Not the other railway. When the Fat Controller wonders where I am, tell him that I'm on a midnight trip to stretch my wheels. Where to? Asked Neville. I'll tell you in a minute, said Skarloey as he began to go on the turntable. Skarloey, said Neville, looking worried. Where are you going? But Skarloey didn't answer. Come back, Skarloey, shouted Neville, but it was too late. As soon as Skarloey arrived at the big station, it was very quiet, and he was waiting for his driver and fireman. Just then, he heard a whistle. Coming nearby was Edward. He was checking if no one was at the station at this time of night, so he could get some rest. Just then, he found Skarloey. Skarloey? He asked curiously. What are you doing here at the big station at this time of night? You're meant to be at the sheds. I was, said Skarloey. I was going to the sheds. Just, looking for the coal bunker, that's all, he said. Do you know where it is? He said, pretending that he didn't know. Oh, it's just by the sheds, said Edward. It's just by the sheds, said Edward, just so you'll know. Okay, said Skarloey, and he puffed away, not without telling Edward where he was really going. But the Fat Controller was already at the coaling plant when Skarloey arrived. Skarloey, he said, everybody has been asking me where you are. What are you doing? I'm just filling up with coal, sir, that's all, said Skarloey. Then the Fat Controller looked in Skarloey's bunker. Skarloey, he said. Then Skarloey's face looked down. Listen, he said, what you did out there a few weeks ago was very brave of you, he said, but I can't have you going to the other railway saving other engines, he said. That is all. But sir, said Skarloey, there are some other engines you might recognise, and they're going to be scrapped, he said, just like they were going to scrap Hank, and even Flynn's there too, he said. The Fat Controller pondered. I'll go to the other railway and give them a compromise of a generation of engines they sell here, he said. For now, you can go back to work and let me do things my own way, he said. You are banned from coming to the other railway, and you cannot save engines there. I'm not doing it to keep you away, but for now, let me deal with this. I'll give this a few weeks for me to decide, he said, and he walked off. Skarloey was shocked. This can't be, said Skarloey. After all these weeks, and now she or me are gonna see some of those engines I saw get cut up, he said. They're suffering there already, especially if they've been there for years, he said sadly. The next few weeks later, after what happened the other night, Skarloey did indeed go back to work. He arrived at the station where the workmen for the new branch line were waiting. Skarloey wished he'd go back to the other railway and save his old friends, but he was especially worried about Flynn. Just then, Ryan puffed in with the heavy freight and luggage for some of the workmen to work on the new branch line with. Ryan could see that Skarloey was worried. You look worried, he said. after saving one engine from the other railway, he said, not to mention all the tiredness you're going through. Yes, said Skarloey, but I need your help, he said. There are some engines on that same exact scrapyard where I've rescued Hank. If you'd like, can you please not tell anyone and get involved in my plan? Certainly, said Ryan. If there's a friend you need, I'll be the one for you to call on, said Ryan. Thank you, Ryan, said Skarloey. I knew I could trust you, he said. Unlike Neville, on the other hand, he said, who's trying to tell the Fat Controller what I'm up to. Yeah, said Ryan. He's been telling rumours that you're going away, or running away, but you're not, aren't you? Of course not, said Skarloey, not in the slightest. Anyways, he said, as he heard the guard's whistle blow. Goodbye, Ryan, he said, and see you later, and see you in the evening, he said, and he puffed away. Later, Skarloey arrived back at the sheds where the other engines were complaining about the mainline engines. They'll take our job soon, said Rheneas. Before we know it, that Samson can't even take care of my goods trains, grumbled Murdoch. And that Connor can't even take over my branch line, he said crossly. This is an outrage. Agreed, said Murdoch. If it would have been easier if I was a streamlined engine and I would go 100 miles per hour than all of you steamers, said Murdoch proudly. But soon Rheneas began to feel crosser. Even you're wishing you're a streamlined engine, he said. I don't even like streamlined engines anyway, shouted Rheneas, and I wouldn't even like you if you're one of them, he said crossly. Besides, I like just the way you are, he said. But before the two could argue, Samson bustled in. What's going on, all of you, my fellow steamers? He shouted. Oh, said Murdoch ungratefully. This isn't actually any of your business, if you don't mind. This is Sodor Railway business. Samson looked sadly away from the other engines and puffed off. Are you sure about this? said Rheneas. He won't even appreciate what you're saying. It's the only way if we're not friendly to mainline engines, said Murdoch. Then they'll think Sodor's the worst place to visit, he said. Psst, Neville, whispered Skarloey. I'd like you to help me. With what? Said Neville. You worried me last night, and now you're going to tell me you're going on another adventure? Yes, said Skarloey. The adventure I'm going to tell you now, he said, as long as you don't tell the Fat Controller. I know what you're up to, said Neville. You're just trying to get away from us. Please, Skarloey, he said, let me come with you. Or I will tell the Fat Controller what you're really up to, he said cheekily. All right, said Skarloey, but to let you know, Ryan is getting involved. Hooray, whispered Neville, and the two engines agreed to stick to the plan. But meanwhile, back at Vickerstown, John Harsh Mathkatush had a plan of his own. He arrived at Vickerstown on his little car and then crashed it into some supports that would secure the bridge. Perfect, he said, as he climbed up the steps and decided to play a naughty trick. He threw buckets of water all over the tracks to the Vickerstown rolling bridge so that the engines would slip. He even did the same to the bumpy old track to Shake Bridge. Yes, said John Harsh. This is perfect. Then I can get that red engine and scrap him myself. My golly, this is going to be perfect, he said. He got into his taxi and decided to doze off until the nighttime sets on. Nighttime came, and Skarloey had finally made it to the big station. "This is where I'm going to meet Neville and Ryan at," whispered Skarloey to his driver. "Do you have enough coal and water?" he whispered to his driver and fireman. "We do," they said. "Thank you for reminding us, Skarloey. We could have been caught in the act if we didn't. Well, I'm glad we're safe here. Join my gang," said Skarloey. Just then, he heard two familiar whistles. "Sorry we're late," said both Neville and Ryan. "We got held up by some crossing gates, that's all." "That's all right," said Skarloey. "Ryan, Neville, let's go." "Don't forget about me," said a voice. Whiff came in. "I want to join in too," said Whiff eagerly. "No, no, no," said Skarloey. "You might end up telling the Fat Controller." Actually, said Ryan, "I'm not sure." "Please," said Whiff. "I promise I won't tell the Fat Controller what you're up to," he said. "I have no side rods and my whistle sounds funny," he said. You three are gonna need me for this one." "You know," said Neville, "I think he has a point." "All right then," said Skarloey. "Whiff, you will come in as well." "Yay!" said Whiff happily. Just then, the Fat Controller came out of the station. "What are you four doing here?" She said. "It's night time, and you four are meant to be at the sheds. And don't worry, those engines you've mentioned to me, Skarloey, will be saved. I just need to go and pay a visit to the other railway tomorrow morning, that's all." Skarloey just froze for a sec. Yes," he said. "What's wrong with you?" asked the Fat Controller. Then Skarloey shouted, "Now!" as he and the other engines raced away from the Fat Controller. "Come back, all of you!" he shouted, but there was no answer. As soon as they still arrived at Boulder Mountain, Skarloey was the first engine to cross. Then Neville, then Whiff. They were still on guard, and Ryan was trying to keep up. "Wait for me," he whispered. "I don't want to be left behind." Skarloey soon went through the Shake Bridge and almost slipped. He applied his brakes. "Be careful," he said to his friends. "There could be danger, and those rails look slippery." "We'll go slower," said Neville. And then Whiff agreed. "All right," said Whiff. And so the two slowed down. They were still continuing on with their mission. Soon, they went through what was going to be the opening and on to the Vickerstown rolling bridge. Both Skarloey, Neville and Whiff made it in time. Unfortunately for Ryan, he was huffing and puffing and trying to keep up. Before he knew it, the bridge snapped beneath him and Ryan came tumbling down in a bank. "Ryan!" shouted Whiff. "Are you all right?" "I'll be okay," said Ryan. "You three can go without me," he said. "All right," said Skarloey. "Not good." But before they knew it, they crossed the Vickerstown rolling bridge. And down the hill they went. But before they could reach the other railway, their way was blocked by Caitlin. "What are you all doing here?" she asked. "I'm about to take those empty coaches back," she said. "I heard what you did, Skarloey, and it was really good. And I heard you're trying to take over over Sodor and take our jobs away and force us to leave for scrap, said Skarloey harshly. You know that's not true, said Caitlin. The truth is, the last time I was here, you all liked me, and now you're all turning against me. Listen, this is not what we're doing. We don't want to hurt your feelings anymore, said Caitlin. Listen, this is what we only came back with Samson and Gator for the extra passengers. We'll still work for the mainland, but we'll come over and visit with the passengers and goods someday, said Caitlin. Always. We are not taking over Sodor and taking your jobs away. Well then, said Skarloey, we were nice to you at first, and I think we should have a better starts next time, said Skarloey. We're sorry. We'll treat you better next time, said Neville. And we would like your help, said Whiff. Anything, said Caitlin. And she had a good plan and decided to keep it to herself. Grunted Harry. This shed stinks. It's going to need a fresh wash down, he said. Or is it just you stinking? Muttered Bert. Maybe, grunted Harry. The two Diesels were still complaining about the stink of this shed they're sleeping in when Caitlin arrived. Hello, she said cheerfully. What are you doing here? Shouted Harry. You're not supposed to be here. Go, get yourself and that filthy tender away from us, or we will come over here and scrap those coaches ourselves. Okay, sorry, said Caitlin sarcastically, and then she began to back up. Look, look, shouted Layla. We're going to be saved, she said. Hooray, shouted King Arthur. Thank you, Caitlin, he said. Soon, the red coaches were coupled to the flatbed truck Timothy was on, and Caitlin sped away. Whee! She cried. Goodbye, suckers! Shouted Timothy. Then Bert was shocked. Did she just take what I thought she took? She took our scrap engine away, didn't she? Said Harry. That's what. Go and find out, or I'll come here myself. Right, said Bert, and he roared off to see what was going on. Then Harry saw a different engine backing towards him. It was none other than Neville. Who are you? Shouted Harry. Are you supposed to be here? Who? Are you supposed to be here? Went Neville, not knowing what to say. I'm a Diesel, just like you are, said Neville, and you must be Harry, or Bert even, he said. I am Harry, said Harry, and my twin Bert is looking for that pink engine that took our scrap engines. By the way, he said, if you see her, just let me know. Just don't do anything stupid and keep guard of this facility, he said. Sure can do, chuckled Neville. Why don't you just go and get some sleep? Of course, sure, said Harry, and went to sleep. Then, in front of Neville was Whiff puffing quietly, since he had a funny sound of whistle and no side rods. Now, whispered Whiff. Then, they all worked fast. Soon, there were only 2 engines that had to be taken care of. Neville soon rescued Layla, and Whiff decided it was the perfect choice to rescue King Arthur, since he was no longer the governor of Sodor's private engine. We're going to escape, whispered Whiff, and soon the 2 engines got away with 2 scrap engines and ran away from the other railway to Sodor. And Skarloey had only one last engine to save. "I'll be glad to help you," said Skarloey. "We've rescued all of your fire engine equipment and we're going to take you home." "Thank you," said Flynn. "That means a lot to me." And to Flynn's surprise, it was. But before they could escape, Whiff puffed in. He was still looking for Helen, King Arthur's private coach, when he stopped Skarloey. "There's an engine looking for you and wants to speak to you," said Whiff. "Don't worry about Flynn. Hand him over to me and then you can rescue the engine who wants you." Skarloey didn't want to, but he had to. He shunted Flynn in front of Whiff, moved onto a siding, and the two made their escape to the Vicarstown rolling bridge. And Skarloey, on the other hand, before Skarloey knew it, he went through a rusted siding and spotted a familiar face. "Spencer!" whispered Skarloey. "What are you doing here? I thought you were Diesel 10's second in command." I was," said Spencer sadly, "until after Thomas and Mighty Mac saved the day a few months ago. He blamed his actions on me and took away my precious coat of paint and put me on a siding for scrap. He said, 'Please help me. I'm sorry I was so rude.'" Skarloey knew it was tough. Just then he heard someone. "Hey!" said Iron Bert, and had already found Skarloey and Spencer. "Looks like we found our culprit over here. Harry, wake up now! Don't let him get away!" shouted Harry. "I won't," said Bert. "Go, Skarloey," said Spencer, "before they get you." Skarloey wanted to, but he made up his mind. "No, I won't," he said, and backed away and pushed Iron Harry into the line. "Get him!" shouted Bert, and then Skarloey went back through the siding where Spencer was about to get cut up and raced on. Dawn broke out, and at last Skarloey had saved Spencer's boiler back there. Just then, Samson was pulling a goods train. He was involved in the plan too. But before Bert could make his way, Samson blocked Bert's way, and Bert screeched to a stop. "Get out of the way!" he shouted, "or I'll make you scrap." "No," said Samson. "These engines are not for sale. They're my engines," shouted Bert. "Now get out of the way." "No," said Samson. "You stay out of this." "You stay out of this," he said. Just then, all the other engines, normal and still scrapped, and one off the rails have now got John Harsh unguarded, and there he was, nowhere to run, and there was no escape. A few moments after his safety valve burst, Skarloey felt tired. The Fat Controller, who was proudly happy to have heard what was going on, came to congratulate Skarloey, but was disappointed and upset that he disobeyed his rules. And of course, after being put in the sheds for the rest of the day, and after being sent to the works to get his safety valve mended, Skarloey was reunited again with his saviour and friend Hank. Both Layla and King Arthur were now at the works to be mended before they could get new coats of paint. King Arthur promised he would see Layla in her old livery again when she was red and black. Layla was happy to be on Sodor again and realised how much she missed Sodor so much. Soon the two were both shunted into the workshop by Skarloey and Hank. And the Fat Controller threatened the diesels that the engines from the mainland would take their jobs away if they didn't behave, but he promised them the overhaul they wanted in the end. And after the Duke and Duchess came back home from visiting the big city, the Fat Controller also promised Spencer he wouldn't tell them about his bad deeds if he promised to agree to be a really useful engine, and whenever he said sorry to other certain engines. Whenever he saw Flynn, he saw the Fat Controller and told Flynn he was sorry for what he had done to him. Flynn said thank you and smiled, and it was also enough to make the Fat Controller smile. And from now on, the Sodor engines and the mainland engines became the best of friends again. And whenever you see Connor or Caitlin coming from the mainland to Sodor giving rides to enthusiasts, they will from now on be given warm welcomes by the other engines from Sodor. And then after that, Skarloey began to feel tired after a few months' events. Well, he said to Melanie, it was the greatest day of my life, he said. Even the greatest days of our lives, he said. Teaming up with engines our size, different sizes, or whatever. My golly, I could do that again, he said. Or if you get lost, maybe you could be rescued again. Or me or Wilhelmina would, said Melanie, giving Skarloey a compliment. Well, I would admire that, said Skarloey. But I wonder what the next adventure of us starts, he thought. He was about to ask Melanie his thoughts, but she went to sleep, dozing off and snoring. Oh, well, said Skarloey, it was the best day of my life anyway, the other day, he said, and if I could go back and do it again, he said. And Skarloey could never have been so happy in his life. With that, he began telling tales about his experience, and he went happily to sleep, dreaming of being the hero he always was before.